So now this video I'm going to talk about the various sculptures of heads, and in my opinion some of the most interesting of all of the African art that we look at this semester. And I asked you to watch a video about some of this work last week for your little quiz, so I hope you did watch that, but I'm going to elaborate on it slightly more. The most elaborate terracotta heads found thus far is what I'm showing you here. It depicts a queen wearing a complex crown with 5 tiers of beads. A row of feathers projects over the serene face. The crest that once adorned the crown, the front of the crown, has been broken off, leaving evidence of a circular pendant on the forehead. Traces of pigment suggest that the sculpture was once painted in bright colors. Many of the terracotta beads discovered at Ife are complete works in themselves and for use on altars. The way the neck is broken on the head, however, indicates that it once formed part of a larger, perhaps complex figure. And this is what's so fascinating. So this figure, let's look at the date here. The 12th to the 13th century. This is later. This is the 13th to the 14th century. So a typical example of the abstract pavement period style is shown here. 2 holes suffice for eyes. A simple wedge-shaped cut indicates the mouth, and round horn-like knobs sprout from the top. The simultaneous use of 2 such radically different styles may reflect a need to embody 2 quite different ideas: the inner head and the outer head are important concepts in Yoruba thought. The inner head is spiritual and invisible. So what I'm showing you here would be the inner head. Perceivable only through the imagination, it embodies a person's spiritual and true being. The outer head is a physical entity perceived through the senses. The terracotta head of early Ife are thought to embody this duality, with the abstract style depicting the inner spiritual reality and the naturalistic style depicting the outer physical reality. So for me, at least from an aesthetic point of view, I just find this so fascinating that they're trying to show in a 3-dimensional piece of art actually like the idea of spirit. And to me, I find that just really amazing and beautiful, just so beautiful. And amazing just because I love the way they did it. That it has this very simplistic form for the inside, and yet the idea of the spirit, at least for me, is just so important to somebody's being. So to me, I just find this art is truly my favorite of all the African art. Pavement period artists also produce works in cast metal. While these sculptures are often spoken of as bronzes, most were created from alloys of zinc, lead, and copper, more prominently classified as brass. A few are almost pure copper, although some recent scholars urge that copper may have reached Ife from less than 1,000 miles away. We do know that metals were obtained through the Trans-Sahara trade networks that extended to the northwest Africa and even tapped into the roots that continued into Central Europe. So you should recognize this because this was one of the ones that was in the video last week. The life-size head shown here can be compared to the terracotta head that I just showed you. The eyes, lips, and ears are stylized according to ideal models. Yet the features are still strongly individualized, and the head may well have been intended as a portrait. The face bears the vertical striations found on many terracotta and brass heads in Ife. Well, these marks are often thought to represent scarification. The Yoruba in recent times have not been known to use this particular scarification pattern, and it is entirely possible that the striations are purely an aesthetic device. Holes along the hairline were probably used to attach headgear, most plausibly a crown. It has been suggested that the heads served as mounts for displaying crowns during annual rituals of renewal and purification, while the ruler's inner heads was blessed. The most remarkable of all the pavement period sculptures was found some 120 miles away in a shrine on the banks of the Niger River near Tada. Dated to around AD 1300, the cast is almost pure copper. The figure is distinguished by its relaxed asymmetrical pose, the palpable scene of weight conveyed by rounded fleshy forms, and the more naturalistic proportion of head to body. The face wears an attentive and dignified expression. A pattern wrapped around the waist falls over the thighs and is fixed on the left hip with an elaborate tie. In view of the widespread use of masks and masquerade in African art, the discovery of masks at Ife is particularly fascinating. Two masks are known, one of terracotta and the other of cast pure copper. Copper is exceedingly difficult to cast, and the flawless casting of the mask is a tribute to the high level of technical skills attained by Ife's artists. The mask is said to represent the third ruler of Ife, who is credited with introducing the technique of casting. Narrow slits below the eyes suggest that the mask was made to be worn. Holes along its back were likely used to attach a costume. The work is kept on an altar in the palace of the present-day Oni of Ife, where it is believed to have resided since its creation in 500 to 700 years ago.